And next, I'd like to welcome up a longtime friend, a pioneer in the internet industry, Bill Gross. You could have, I could tell you stories about all the many iterations of what Bill has done from his pioneering work in advertising. You were doing a ton of stuff around climate and green tech for quite a while. These days, you're building something that I think we want to focus our time on, which is ProRata AI, which unlike sort of everyone else in the industry, which is, serving up content, you type in an LLM, it gets its answers, it spits it out. None of that revenue goes back to the publishers. Maybe the publishers are striking one-off deals. You've taken a different approach. Explain what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Ina. Well, first of all, it's an honor to be here. Thank you all for coming on this Wednesday at Davos, and even the standing room only. I really appreciate you all being here. I feel that AI is unbelievable, unstoppable, incredible, but also shoplifting content. I feel that it's stealing human creativity and not compensating. And just like in every other area of human creativity, you have Spotify, which shares revenue with the composers. You have YouTube, which shares revenue with the creators. I feel that generative AI should share revenue with the creators as well. So I'm on a mission to try and make that happen. And with ProRata AI, I'm hoping to show the world that that can be profitable and successful and foster human creativity. And so far, we've signed up more than 400 publications to a 50-50 revenue share so that we would look at the output of generative AI, analyze where the content came from, and then share back 50% of the revenue with those creators, just like other systems do already. Probably the reason why people haven't done it yet, well, one, I think the AI companies don't want to share the revenue. But the other reason is it's not as easy to count, because with streams, you can count the stream. With YouTube views, you can count the view. With a download in the App Store, you can count the download. With generative AI, because it's a mashup of multiple content, it's not very clear where it came from. So we set out to come up with an algorithm to unmix the answer and say, who was responsible for this content? Which copyrighted material was used in the making of it? And then share revenue according to that method. So my goal is to show the world that that's viable, possible, fruitful for everybody, and win-win. And so far, it's making pretty good progress.
I heard viable, I heard profitable, I heard good for everyone. I didn't hear scalable.
Okay.
How do you get to scale?
Okay. So Spotify took in $16 billion of revenue last year, shared $12 billion, still was profitable, and is a $100 billion market cap. So that's just one example of how it can be profitable. I want the same thing to happen in generative AI. So now to your question, how do we make it scale? So we're launching this month a small answer engine called gist.ai. And from there, you can ask a question, and it will come from all 400 of our sources. So we have 50 million documents from 400 sources, and we will answer your question, track where it came from, and then share all of our revenue 50-50 with those partners. Our goal is to then show people that that's sustainable and go to the AI companies and say, you should do this too. In fact, if you want to use our attribution as a service to do that, we'll happily share that with you, or do your own. We just want to move the industry forward to do that. So the way that we make it scalable is we convince the industry, OpenAI and Gemini and Apple and Anthropic and everybody, that if you want to crawl people's content, you should share. I heard this incredible stat from the CEO of Cloudflare. This was unbelievable to me just the other day. 10 years ago, Google crawled 2 pages for every visitor they delivered to your website. So every time they crawled 2 pages of your site, on average, 1 visitor would be delivered. Today, it's 6 pages they crawl for every visitor. So it's gotten 3 times harder to monetize your website because they're doing a lot more crawling per visitor they send you. OpenAI crawls 250 pages for every visitor they send you. So it's an unfair exchange of value that they're taking up so much and giving back so little. So OpenAI is 250 pages. Anthropic is 250,000. They crawl 250,000 pages for every visitor they send. Why is it so few? Because they obscure where the content came from. So there's almost no reason to go visit the original site. So if a site is trying to make a living by drawing visitors to them, whether they have subscription or advertising, these companies are taking that away. So I'm just trying to make a more fair value exchange for getting this content.
So as someone who creates content for a living, I like it. I'm on board, CEO of Cox. I think Alex would like us to get revenue every time our great content is used. I don't know that the OpenAIs of the world necessarily want to. I mean, we struck a deal with OpenAI. They are striking deals with publishers, but they're not using that system.
Yep.
They're using a one-time fee. It's kind of,
Yes.
a brief windfall, but it's not an ongoing thing.
A one-time fee is not sustainable for human creativity. If you went to Taylor Swift or Bob Dylan or Madonna and said, from Spotify, and said, hey, I'd like to pay you one time for your music forever, that's just not going to work. It doesn't sustain the creativity. So I want to convince the AI companies that they need to pay per use. Every time they make money with the answer, they should share revenue. It's going to be a hard lift. Well, there's a number of ways to get them to do it. Maybe guilt. I don't know if that's going to work, the moral argument. Maybe legal pressure. And of course, there's a lot of lawsuits right now. So some of those lawsuits will play out. New York Times started with the first lawsuit a little over a year ago. In fact, that New York Times lawsuit is what inspired me to try and do this, because I thought the right way to solve this isn't with lawsuits. The right way to solve this is with fairness, where everybody wins. The consumer should win, getting the great answer they want. The creator should win by getting some revenue, and OpenAI should win too. They should make money. They're adding value by compiling the answer. But the other way we might persuade them is with quality. By that I mean, over time, if more and more publishers and creators block their content from these systems, their quality will go down, and the people who are paying, their quality will go up, and users will vote with their feet and go to the places where there's quality. So I'm hoping a combination of those factors will make it happen.
And for you to be successful, do we need publishers to stop signing these one-time only deals with?
Well, I think that publishers should sign one-time only deals and these deals. Like, I think publishers should get some money up front for the training, but then they should get an ongoing revenue stream for the output. So the one-time payments are for the input to make the model learn. But as you heard just from the last panel, there's ongoing learning and ongoing response going on, ongoing content being created. There, I think you should get something every time you write. Let's say you write a breaking story this week. That wasn't used in the training set for OpenAI,
Right.
But that new story might get used in an answer, and you should get credit for that. And I just think that's the future.
Yeah, you don't have to sell me on it.
Well, if anybody has ideas on how we can help make that be the future, that would be incredible. We're open to that. We're on the side of creators and on the side of publishers, and anything we can do to help make that happen would be
Are
incredible.
any of the 400 publishers that you're working with, do any of them also have deals with
Yes.
like OpenAI?
Yes. I would say probably 10 or 20 of them also have deals with OpenAI. So Atlantic would be an example of one. They did a deal with OpenAI, but they also did a deal with us. They believe that they should get whatever money they can for training, but they also should get the 50-50 revenue share as well.
And talk about who are some of these publishers that are with you?
So we have Universal Music Group with all 200 of their artists. We have Financial Times. We have Fortune, Time Magazine, Atlantic, lots of newspapers in the UK, BBC, Guardian. So we're getting a lot of people to really join this movement. But I really feel that's really what this is. Obviously, I would like the company to be successful, but I don't care about that as much as a movement to make this be fair, the same way there was a movement against Napster to make a fair system. Actually, if you think back to Napster, this is just like that. So Napster comes out, you have a bunch of low-quality, ripped-off songs from peer-to-peer networks where the quality wasn't necessarily good. You didn't know if the MP3 file was recorded with the right quality. You didn't even know if you got the right song. Sometimes you were tricked. The song name wasn't the right song. And then Steve Jobs came along, and then there were lawsuits. And then there was even some lawsuits against users, which was really not taken very well. By the music industry sued some end.
Yep, I remember.
But then Steve Jobs came along and said to the music labels who did not want to break up their albums, how about if I sell songs for 99 cents each, share revenue with each download, make sure that each download is in high quality, make sure it's all labeled correctly, the store's organized well. And people over about a 2-year period shifted to quality. And I hope the same thing can happen here.
Again, you got me on that. The other thing that I think you probably hear a lot, I certainly hear it all the time, is it's just too hard. Like, you can't attribute. Obviously, you're saying that that's not a hard technical problem, or it's solvable at least.
It's completely solvable with AI. So ironically, it takes AI to take the output of AI and decipher it and break it into the individual claims and insights, or to take it. So I'm talking a lot about text because we're talking about Axios, mostly text. But this works for images, this works for music, this works for movies too. Obviously, there's going to be a lot, there already is a lot of theft from music companies that are generating new songs. Suno and Udio are being sued by Universal Music Group. The CEO of Universal Music Group was on our panel yesterday. He loves technology. He wants people to make new generated songs. He just wants the artists to be fairly compensated and credited.
And the music industry is a great example of this.
Yes.
They've done it all along. Like,
Yes, yes.
I can do a cover. Well, I can't do a cover because I have the world's worst singing voice. Assuming I could sing, I could do a cover of any song I want, and the people that wrote it would get compensated.
And that happened with great notoriety last year. There was that great cover of Tracy Chapman's song. Almost out of obscurity, she earned millions of dollars in royalties that year. The artist who covered it did very well. They come together on stage at the Grammys, but it's automatically all worked in. I think we need to do the same thing for all creatives. But just as an example of how you can break apart something that might not seem obvious, many of you might have used Shazam once. You're in a noisy restaurant, you take out your phone, you take a 10-second sample of the noisy song that's playing. It takes that digital signature, it compares it to 1 million digital signatures of songs that are in the catalog, and if it sees a 99% match, it shows you that song.
And how does it work with text? Because I get how it works with music and pictures and video because you can pretty easily chase, but a short snippet of text isn't much data.
So I just gave you the music example of how you find an exact match. But what if you have a newly remixed song that is composed of multiple songs? Well, we take the 10-second snippets of the whole song, we compare it to the million songs, and we look for a fuzzy match, not an exact match. You can do a mathematical vector distance between the sample you have and the samples that are recorded. So now for text. You take the text and you break it up into themes and insights. Those you can digitize, and we've pre-computed all of those from all the input documents. We have 50 million input documents from all of our partners. We have already pre-processed those for their themes and insights. You look for matches, and you give credit to whoever said it first and whoever has something most unique. So if you write something about Davos that says there's this many visitors at Davos this year, 4,000 articles tell you that there are 3,000 visitors at Davos. But if you have an insight from a panel that you saw, that's going to be only in your article, and that shows up in the answer, we're going to give you virtually 100% credit. So it comes down to vector distances that are the same things that are being done to generate the AI can be done to decompose the AI.
So the technical problem is not the hard one. Again, the two that we've identified are one, convincing the big AI companies it's actually in their interest to do it. And the other, in order to do that, I suspect, is getting people to try out your system.
Yes. So people, please try out Gist and give us feedback as soon as it launches. But further, we have smaller LLMs, not the big ones, smaller LLMs coming to us saying they want to use this immediately to end their lawsuits. Now, OpenAI has a lot of money, so they're fighting the lawsuit with the New York Times. But I think over time, we'll see how those lawsuits play out. But I really think there should be a lawsuit-free zone, just like there is with Spotify, where everybody wins. Consumers win because they get a subscription service that they love. Artists win, and Spotify wins. Everybody makes money.
And so what is the pitch to consumers for Gist going to be? What are you going to say? Why do people go here? Because it's going to have less data than the big models.
And sometimes less data might be better, and I'll tell you why. Well, one pitch is this is a fair system that you can support artists, support creativity. I don't know how that will play, but we'll take that if we can get that. But the real reason is if we have 50 million documents that all come from vetted publishing organizations, and we answer from those documents and not from the web in general, and not from Twitter and Reddit, there's way less disinformation. You not only get a better quality answer, but you also see the sources where it came from, so you can actually go check them out and confirm and understand if you trust that source or not. So we think that will be a benefit to users. And in particular, if you ask a question that is not answered in our 50 million documents, we say we don't know, rather than making shit up. So the other sites pretty much make shit up when they don't have something. And that could matter for a legal question or a medical question or for something where you really care. You'd rather hear, I don't have that answer, than just something from using Twitter and Reddit word frequency. By the way, if it uses Twitter and Reddit word frequency, it sounds very convincing. The answer sounds pretty good because it structures sentences that sound like words that could follow one another, but there's nothing behind it.
Yeah, obviously that's a huge concern. How much of the questions that you think the average person might ask do you think Gist will be ready to answer at launch?
I think we'll be able to answer 98%. The special questions we wouldn't be able to answer are really detailed things like what's happening around the corner right now, or what's the weather in this weird location that no one's reported on. So that, I would say, Google's incredible for. But for something where you want a compilation of insights from people, we can answer almost everything.
And how are you dealing with content moderation and not content moderation, but deciding what is and isn't allowed? Is that more or less of a problem?
It's less because the LLM that we use chooses the article that best answers the person's question. So it's really more about what question did you ask. And in fact, there's one other great thing about this whole new generative AI answer system, which is it doesn't rely on SEO, search engine optimizing, gaming, tricks, all kinds of link strength and how many pointers you have. We just look at the articles, we look at your question, and we say, what is the best content to answer this? Well, we don't say it, the LLM says it. So it really is more pure. It's almost like the final evolution of where search is perfect. It's really, really incredible what we have, not just at GIST, but with this AI in general.
And what are the most common arguments you get against it?
Well, I think the first argument is we don't want to. The second argument is we don't think we can do it. We don't think it's possible. So we are disproving that second argument. And I think that over time, people will realize if you're scraping this much data with an unfair exchange with the creators in the world, something has to change. And Cloudflare's behind that, we're behind that, and we hope we can make that happen.
Well, it sounds fascinating. I look forward to hearing how it goes. Maybe next year we'll get to catch up on how it's going.
Well, thank you very much. You've been
Bill
a great
Gross.
audience. Thank you so much.
And I'd like to welcome up our publisher, Nick Johnston, with a word from our sponsor.